This is the Bvlgari Diagono CH40 STA, a luxury automatic chronograph that wears really well on medium to smaller wrist. In this video, I'll show you the best features of this watch and answer any questions you might have, such as how does this wear on smaller wrist, what movement does this watch have, is this a Daytona alternative, and is this watch even worth the price? Spoiler, I think it is. If you're new here, hi, I'm Keanu. I like documenting my life. Today we're going to be talking about the Bvlgari Diagono. This watch is from the early 2000s and it's on loan from Cool Vintage Watches. More about that later. I just want to start off with some history about Bvlgari. It was founded in Rome in 1884 by a Greek silversmith by the name of Sotiro Bvlgari. Nowadays, Bvlgari is a part of the LVMH group, which has Tag Heuer, Hublot, and other watch brands like that. In my mind, Bvlgari is very similar to Cartier. They're known for their excellent jewelry, but they also have amazing watchmaking. In the Octo Finissimo line, Bvlgari has broken several records for the world's thinnest movement and thinnest automatic chronograph. I'm personally a big fan of the Octoroma chronograph. It has a really cool textured dial. The pushers, I like the way that they are angular with the case, and overall I just think that their newer watches are really cool. The watch we're talking about today is a chronograph that soon became the aluminum chronograph, and in my personal opinion, I prefer the older one. I think they just look a lot cooler. Let's talk about why. Starting with the design, I think that the older design is much cooler. The newer ones made out of aluminum have the name Bvlgari on them, and I think it really cheapens the look of the watch. I'll put a picture up of the newer Bvlgari, which is $6,000, and then a moon swatch, which is $200, and I'll just let you see for yourself. I prefer the look of the tachymeter bezel. It gives a cool Daytona vibe, and I think it looks a lot sleeker. I think that Bvlgari made the wrong decision switching over to the name on the bezel. I mean, imagine if another brand like Seiko took their SKX with the functional dive bezel and then just took that away and stuck Seiko on it. Like, how silly would that be? Imagine a Rolex with a smooth bezel and it just says Rolex on it. Like, it doesn't sound right because it isn't right, and I really think that Bvlgari should go back to the way it was. The reason why I think they changed it was to separate themselves from the Daytona and have their own design language, but I personally think that they chose the wrong path. One more thing it reminds me of are the tacky Invictas that have the Invicta logo on the side of the Pro Divers. Anyways, getting away from that rant, let's continue on to the dial. The dial on this watch is super awesome. It's obviously a chronograph watch, so you have the 3 subdials. On the right subdials, you have the running 60 seconds. On the bottom subdial, you have the 12-hour counter, and on the left subdial, you have the 30-minute counter. These rings, along with the shiny 12 and the shiny markers, give it a really cool, shiny, luxury feeling, and I think that this watch looks really good in the light. The hands themselves have lume on them, and they also look really good. They have these little red tips on the top of them that give it a lot of character, and I love how vintage has these funky designs. And to keep in mind, this is not really a vintage watch, this is early 2000s, but even then you could see that the designs had way more playfulness to them. Probably my favorite thing about the dial is the color match date wheel. I think this date wheel is perfectly executed. It's a good match between subtle and legible, and those are my 2 favorite things about tool watches. It's just big enough to read it, while also not being sunken into the dial. It rests in the 430 position, which allows it to have the same amount of markers on each side, giving it perfect dial symmetry. And overall, I just think that this date execution is really good. One more thing is the color obviously matches, so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. It's little details like these that make watches truly excellent. Wearing the watch is a big part of it, so let's talk about the specifications and wearability. There are certain watches that you can't judge based off the numbers, and I believe that this is one of them. So for reference, I have a 5.5 inch wrist. I think I can pull this watch off fairly well, but I also think it would look really good on a 6 to 7 inch wrist. The diameter is 41 millimeters across with a lug to lug of 50 millimeters, and it doesn't actually wear like this, and I'll explain why in a bit. It has a 7.5 millimeter lug width, but the effective lug width is about 22 millimeters. But don't worry, it doesn't wear that big because it tapers down to a really nice 15 millimeters at the clasp. Another thing to keep in mind about how this watch might wear is the dial size. So the dial is only 30 millimeters across, which can give it a more compact feel. I will say it's still incredibly legible though. I wore this watch for quite a while before measuring the specifications, and I was shocked to see the lug to lug of 49 millimeters. I never felt like it was overhanging, and this is probably because the first link comes down from the lug. This watch has a screw down crown for 100 meters water resistance, and it's also chronometer rated. And so you already know that this chronograph is going to be reliable and tough and be able to handle anything you throw at it. I just love the fact that it's an automatic chronograph under 11 millimeters thick, and it's going to be reliable. Weighing this watch, you can see it comes in at 124 grams, sized for my 5.5 inch wrist. The presence was noticeable, but it also was a good noticeable. It had like a luxury feeling. It never felt top heavy or heavy at all, and I just really enjoy how this one wears. This watch can come with 2 different movements, and I'll cover both of them. The first movement it could come with is the Zenith El Primero movement, which is a really cool movement. It was sort of the first automatic chronograph, but not really, and it has some history ties with the Daytona, which I think is really cool. The other movement it could come with is the Bvlgari caliber 080 TEAT, TETE, and this is a modified ETA movement with a modular chronograph on top of it. This specific Bvlgari that I'm reviewing comes with the Bvlgari caliber. You're probably wondering how to tell the difference between which movement it has, and so I'll give you a couple of tells. So the first tell is if you're looking at the side profile with the crown, the pushers will be offset because the modular chronograph movement sets on top of it. So that's one way to tell. The second way to tell is the clear versus solid case back. So for the Bvlgari modified ETA caliber, they usually had closed case backs because they didn't really want to show that off. Whereas for the Zenith El Primero movements, you might find open case backs. I'm not entirely sure about that, but you should definitely do your own research. One other way you might be able to tell is that this specific one, the ETA, has smooth chronograph sweeps instead of ticking over. So when the seconds hand passes over the 60, it doesn't tick to the next minute, it just smoothly goes the entire time. You might also be able to tell by the registers. So I know for sure that the ETA registers, the one on the left is the 30 minutes, the one on the bottom is the 12-hour, and the one on the right is the 60 seconds. But I'm not entirely sure about the Zenith movement. The movement overall feels really great. The reset's super snappy and the pushers click whenever you push them in. Not to mention it's also chronometer officially certified. I've been wearing this watch for about a week and it's kept pretty much perfect time for me. This watch also comes with a 1-year warranty. But now to talk about my favorite part about the watch, which is the bracelet. Remember that Bvlgari is a jewelry brand first, similar to Cartier, so you can expect higher quality bracelets from them. This one uses an integrated style bracelet similar to Gerald Genta with the AP Royal Oak and the Nautilus from Patek Philippe. However, this one has a unique design and there's screws on the back, which I think look really cool. I'm not sure if they're functional at all, kind of like the faux rivets of a Tudor, but they don't dig into your skin at all and I didn't notice them, but I just think they're a cool addition. The whole bracelet tapers really nicely. I've heard that there are half links out there if you need a better fit, but I was able to get a really good fit on mine without half links. There are versions of this watch out there with rubber straps or leather straps, but I would personally try to get one on the bracelet if you can, and you can always purchase the rubber strap or the leather strap secondary. A quick story about why I don't like leather straps is I had lent a leather strap watch to my friend, and when I got it back, it reeked of sweat from his wrist. And so I went to wash it and I tried to wash it with soap and water, but that ruined the leather, it cracked it, and after that I just never wanted to touch a watch with leather band. I also just am not a very dressy guy. The jobs I do, you know, you kind of either need a G-Shock or at least a bracelet, and I'm not a big rubber guy, so I'm typically wearing a metal band. This specific metal band is held together with pin and collar systems. So the pin goes through the link and then there's a collar in the center link that holds it all together. There are some pros to using pin and collars over screws. So screwed links can strip away and the screws can fall out. I actually had a screw fall out on one of my watches because I didn't use Loctite glue on it, and so the screw fell out. Using pin and collars also means that this entire bracelet is adjustable, whereas screwed links usually have some of the links that can't be unscrewed. But by far my favorite part of this bracelet is the hidden clasp on it. I think it looks really cool and it allows you to see more of the links instead of just like a big ugly clasp. I know Cartier and Rolex sometimes use hidden clasp and I think they always look great. They're very reminiscent to butterfly style clasp. My favorite watch right now is a Patek Philippe mid-size Nautilus, and that one comes with a butterfly clasp. Overall, I think any type of hidden clasp is really, really cool. So let's talk about all the pros. There are so many pros to this underrated watch. To start off, it's a compact, thin automatic chronograph and a luxury watch that's relatively affordable. I mean, for me, that's what I've been looking for, and so I'm really glad to spend some time with this watch. It's also super reliable. You got that officially certified chronometer rating, and you also have the screw-down crown with the crown guards for 100 meters of water resistance. Not to mention that Bvlgari has some clout factor to it. It's not the most hyped brand, but it is a luxury brand, and people will know that it's quality when they see it. And another thing I've noticed is that people think that chronograph watches are expensive, and they are, but even people who don't know what a chronograph is, they just see that the dial is busy, and they're gonna think it's expensive. But being a chronograph movement, this is a really good chronograph watch. It's a tri-register chronograph, which I really prefer. I like being able to count up to 12 hours, even if I never need to. I just think it's cool looking. I like how smooth the seconds hand is when it sweeps. and it's a reverse panda, which is super popular. I think it's awesome. It's one of my favorite looks. I love the color match date wheel. I think that looks awesome. There are also some really cool design things that separate this from the Daytona. So like those red markers on the hands, I think look really crisp. And overall, this is just a sweet watch. The wearing experience has been really nice. The bracelet's comfortable. It's unique design, and it's very, very reminiscent of the integrated sports style watch. Watches like this one and some other watches I've tried on have really made me appreciate the combination between innovative technology and jewelry making when it comes to watches. And lastly, the movement's pretty great. If you get the El Primero movement, you have a cool connection to the Zenith and the Daytona. And if you get the modular ETA chronograph, you have a relatively affordable ETA movement to service. There are some cons to this watch. So the lugs are pretty long, and since the dial is a little bit smaller, it can lead to the proportions seeming a little bit different than what most people are used to. But after wearing it a while, you kind of get used to it, and I do think it's a really cool look. Adding on to that, the bezel is kind of wide, so it makes the dial look small, but maybe that's a good thing depending on how you want it to wear. I will say that the dial is big enough to be legible, and I've never had an issue reading it. And the last real con is that it's a modular ETA chronograph movement, and I've heard that sometimes this can be either expensive to service, difficult to service, or sometimes they'll just replace the whole modular part and then they don't really service it like you would consider a service. And so that's something to consider and do your own research on, because I wasn't able to find a definitive answer. I just wanted to give some of my personal opinions at the end here. Rolex is my favorite brand for its reliability and the confidence it instills in you. And I know it's all marketing, but that's really important to some people. And I love Cartier. Cartier is probably my second favorite brand. I love their refined jewelry making process. Their watches really feel like something different than anything else can offer you. If you've ever owned a Cartier, you know what I mean. And I think this Bvlgari is a really cool mix of Rolex's reliability mixed with Cartier's jewelry making. And I really am interested to see what else they come out with. And I hope that they can do better as a brand, because right now I was looking on their websites and none of their watches really speak to me. I think the reason why that is because they don't really have a mainstream design. They kind of just do their own thing, but it's not really like Cartier level do their own thing. So they're kind of just in this weird spot when it comes to watchmaking. Definitely check them out in person if you ever get the opportunity to. I tried some of the watches on in Chicago and they were really cool watches, so you ought to give them a try. One more thing I forgot to mention about the date wheel is it is quick set date, so that's really nice to have. I hope you enjoyed this watch review and learned a little bit more about Bvlgari. They're a really cool brand and you should check them out. This specific watch is for sale at Cool Vintage Watches. They let me borrow it, but obviously I'm not getting paid for that. I'm just friends with the guy there. So if you want to purchase this watch, you can. It comes with full links and it comes with a 1-year warranty, so that's pretty cool. Here's the phone number. Let them know I sent you if you do end up checking it out. Make sure you share your thoughts and comments down below. I really appreciate reading them. I find them really funny and interesting. Leave a like on the video if you like this video and subscribe for more content like it. I'll see you in the next one. See you. I've shot this video like 8 times because either I just couldn't get it done quick enough, or the script wasn't right, or I kept forgetting things, or I wanted it to be perfect, and it's never perfect. There's always stuff you can improve. But I'm hoping to get this out because I know it's been a while since I posted a watch video. So I'm just gonna post it and see what happens.